Hello there everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Joesephyr and welcome to another Should You Pull video for Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. Now in today's video, amongst all these massively hyped banners, whether it be Bartz himself, Galoof, Tifa, etc., there's another banner that doesn't quite get as much attention, though there's still some interesting things to look at in it if you have a surplus of resources. And of course I'm talking about Edward's Lost Chapter, which will not only feature Edward and the return of his LD weapon, etc., but also Palom. Now Palom is a damage dealer, very strictly so, with ice damage, and that's very simply what he does. But what would make it so that you'd want to spend resources on either of these characters when we've got so many hype banners around them? If you'd like to know more about these two characters and of course the event that follows them, then of course stay tuned and keep on watching. Now before we get started, of course don't forget to check out all of my social media links in the description box down below, including my Twitter, Twitch, Discord, Patreon, everything you need if you'd like to come and follow me on various platforms. Now on Twitch I obviously stream 5 days a week, including every event that comes out for Dissidia Opera Omnia, as well as streaming Final Fantasy XIV twice a week, and I've just started streaming Final Fantasy V, which is one of my favourites in the franchise and coincides quite nicely with Bartz in Opera Omnia too. Of course with Patreon I always shout out one of my patrons every time I release a new video, and today that person is going to be Araman, who as you can see in their title card below is a big Arden fan, as well as an X-Death fan, having spoken to them directly. But I thought I'd go with Arden because quite honestly I quite like Arden as well. If you would like a title card made just for you, they're good to go in the credits of all of my videos and possibly shout outs at the beginning of my videos as well as other benefits such as being a part of Would You Pull, being a part of voice chats we all do, lots of different things, then you might want to consider becoming a patron yourself. Now I do also want to give an extra shout out today because I want to give a shout out to 40, also known as the Broadway Saiyan, who's another pillar of the community who has recently said that they're not doing videos so much anymore, and I just want to say a massive thank you to him for being as supportive towards my channel as he has been. We're not very public about it, but we are actually very close friends, and we've been each other's support system a lot of times where there's been a lot of not so nice things that have happened to each other. So I just want to say a massive thank you to you, 40, because you're a good person, you're a good friend, and I hope that in the near future we can actually get together and see each other for once in the world. After all this quarantine crap's been over. So I just wanted to say a big thank you to you. And also don't forget to check out all of the other links in the description box below for resources related to Dissidia Opera Omnia, and check out all of the other fabulous content creators out there besides myself. So first things first, we're going to talk about Edward's LD board and what that brings to Edward. If you don't know a huge amount about him, I do obviously already have a Should You Pull video for Edward himself from when he first came out, and his actual kit itself hasn't changed, but there have been a couple of additions to it. Also, to double check with the banner itself, obviously this banner is going to contain all of Edward's gear and all of Palom's gear, so it's another double LD banner. It's going to feature Bartz's Burst Plus, and it's also going to feature Hope. So if you already have access to Hope, who was pullable fairly recently as well, then you'll have an extra synergy character for the event, which will be pretty handy because Hope actually coincides quite nicely with these characters. But I wouldn't go pulling here for Hope EX. You've got better banners to pull for Hope on with his LD in it. But Edward has not got anything new in terms of like a rework to his kit or anything, but he does have an LD board, and therefore with that comes an LD call ability and a regular call ability. Now his LD board actually increases a fair few things about him. If you haven't used him before, his main focus is to try and buff party stats, and he can also hide so that he becomes practically invincible, but he lowers the stat buffs that he grants to the party, whether like if he's not there. And then his AX was just a damage dealing thing that made it so that your opponents couldn't gain bravery. And then his LD, Lullaby, which is kind of the selling point of him, puts enemies to sleep, reduces their bravery to 0, and makes it so that when they are asleep they can't act as if they were paralyzed, but it lasts for 5 turns. But those turns are reduced every time you hit the enemy. So basically it's a case of you just don't want to touch them. Well, it's good against enemies that take multiple turns in a row because it stops them from being able to do that, as we'll see in the event as it comes up. Now in terms of the additions to it, he gets an LD board that makes it so that he increases any bravery he recovers by 10% through his own abilities. He gets access to another buff as well, which is also increased while he has his Awakened Courage buff, so while he's not hiding, basically. And what this gives you is bravery damage dealt up by 10%, 20% if you have the better version of it. Initial bravery, max bravery, and party brave overflow limit all increased. So this is a nice buff. Like, it does bring it up to the speed of the sorts of support abilities we see in other characters. Is it as good as the likes of, say, Bartz, Serra, Paladin Cecil? No, not really. But when you're combining it with all of the other stuff that he does, it is a nice extra. And he also starts with this with his LD board as well. And another thing that comes along with it is that even though he reduced all bravery damage to, or bravery to 0 on all of his enemies when you cast this, it didn't do any damage, it just put them to sleep. Well, now it does an AoE HP damage attack equal to 100% of his own bravery to all enemies, and it doesn't consume his bravery. So you're kind of looking at a Penelo-esque type deal here, which is quite nice. Now, in terms of his call abilities, his regular call ability is Bard Song, which gives him just a little bit of buff, so you get party attack up, brave regen, and brave overflow limit, and then brave HP attack. Split damage, it's nothing huge, nothing special. It's nice, but what you really want from him is that LD call ability, because you get a single use of putting the enemies to sleep and getting all of that bravery reduction, getting the HP damage and everything. It's one of those really utility-based LD calls that's really handy in certain missions and probably fairly useless in others. Like if it's a mission where you're going to be delaying the enemies a lot, you're probably not going to bring Edward along, but in the event of an enemy where they like to take multiple turns in a row, you are going to want to at least consider bringing Edward. That being said, I feel that his base kit, and more specifically his base stats, are actually very poor for this point in the game. Like, he does very little damage. His auras are nice, but like I said, they're not on the same level as some of the support characters out there. If you're wanting Edward, you're probably pulling for him for his call ability at this point. He's useful in his own event, but by and large, there are other characters that can do the job. And this is speaking as somebody who actually really likes Edward. So now let's take a look at Palom, who is kind of a little more complex than some characters, but also extremely straightforward. If you haven't used Palom before, he is a damage dealer, straight up, no questions asked. He does ice damage, that is it. And if you haven't used him before now, both of his skills grant him like your typical offensive buff. So Dark Arts is your attacker, Dark Wisdom is your max braver, one grants the other. Bluff is a brave gain followed by a brave HP attack, and then Dissidia Ice Crystal is also a brave HP attack that gives you access to a dual cast HP attack plus, which does 6-hit brave HP attack, which is fantastic. However, both of these skills have very few skill uses. Bluff has 3, Dissidia Ice Crystal has 4. That is it. Now, the thing that's weird about these is that whenever you use one of them, the next time you use it, you'll get an extra plus added on, and then they do more. So, for example, Bluff, you gain more bravery each time you use it, and then Dissidia Ice Crystal, you get more splash damage out of it after you use it, all the way up to 100% on the last use. Now, the thing with this is that you're relying on an HP attack, which is not fantastic. Now, his EX attack is actually very good. Stardust, after you've put everything in there, like all the ingots, all the books, everything like that, will enchant him for ice, will imperil all the enemies for ice, so he's very, very strictly ice damage. You'll start with the EX gauge up, you get more recast speed, which means that it's actually very fast recasting. So you'll be able to get a lot out of it in terms of damage and the fact that you're using the HP plus more frequently than you would with certain other characters. And the fact that you get access to dual cast, to his Brave Attack Plus, and honestly, it's a good HP attack. It's a 4-hit AoE Brave HP, followed by a 7-hit AoE Brave HP, which does a lot of damage. Like, for an EX that's cast that frequently, it's pretty good. And then with his LD, like, adds an extra element to him so that he's not literally just, I press buttons and things get hurt, but it still equates to it in the end. So, like his other skills, Twincast Double Blizzaga increases in power each time you use it. So you only get 3 uses of it, but each time you use it, extra HP dumps get added in. So the first time you get 2, the second time you get 3, the third time you get 4. So it does hit very hard, but you also get another buff from it, which is very strong for him, and the duration of that buff will be longer for each time you've cast it. So the first time you get it for 8 turns, the second time it's 12, the third time it's 16. And you also, with LD boards, etc., you do actually start with that buff. Now, the actual attack itself, after LD boards, re-breaks the enemy, which is not something that Palom's wont to doing until this point. So, what the Twin Resolve buff does, and by Twin's Resolve it's also awesome because Porum turns up in the animation, they attack together, it's very, very sweet. Now, when you break the enemy, this gives him the same kind of thing like Lightning has, or Arden, where after you re-break an enemy, or after you break an enemy, you get a free turn after it. Unlike those characters, when you do that on the free turn, his HP damage goes up by 50%. So you want to be doing rebreaks wherever possible if you can help it. And then the Twin Resolve buff as well gives him 20% overflow, gives him some more weakness damage similar to Golbear's, so you definitely want to make sure that you're actually able to hit for weakness damage, and he gets some Brave regen as well. Then he also gets a Braver Plus and HP Attack Plus variant after he's broken the enemy, so he has something to use that doesn't take up his skill uses on those free turns. So the Brave Attack version, Brave Attack Plus Plus, is a 6-hit Brave HP attack that refunds some of his bravery, which is very, very important at this point in time. And his HP Attack Plus Plus becomes Dual Cast Plus Plus, which is very similar to his regular version of Dual Cast, but it makes his the durations of his buffs last another turn, whereas originally it didn't do that. So you'll get either splash damage from the HP Plus, or you'll get Brave Refund from the Brave Plus. So you have a choice. I'm personally not the biggest fan of Palom. Like, apart from the fact that having just played FF4, he is by far the most irritating little tyke there is, then, you know, his kit, it's very linear. Like, very linear. There's no buffs to the party whatsoever. He's very strong. On his break turns, like his free turns, he will deal a lot of damage. If his EX is up for those turns, you will hit hard. And the LD, after the first cast, it's definitely going to do a lot of damage. But if you've got ice damage dealers, like Onion Knight or Celeste, I don't see there being much need for Palom. Like, he's going to do damage, he's strong, he's going to hit hard, but I don't like the over-reliance on his Brave and HP pluses. I find that, like, I find that very unexciting. I think that his EX is fantastic. I'm probably not going to be pulling here, I'll spoil that now, because I already have Edward, and Palom, while nice, isn't enough to draw me away from the banners that surround him. Had he not been released in between the likes of Bartz and Tifa and Galoof, maybe I would feel differently. But as it stands, especially knowing that Palom comes back on multiple banners and therefore I can use him as like a fun little consolation prize later down the line to other banners, I don't see much reason for me to want to pull for him here, because damage dealers are a dime a dozen, and usually with damage dealers comes some sort of extra. And the only actual way to get rebreak, or like, you know, it like unbreak and then break, is from his LD, which he only gets 3 casts of, which I'm just not really feeling it, honestly. Like, I think it's fine. Like, if you like him, God forbid you like him, then yeah, he's functional. He'll do the job. But other than that, I think there are just much better uses of your resource than Palom, unless you're really strapped for ice damage. Now, in terms of called abilities, Palom just does damage. That's what he does. And honestly, the fact that you get with the LD call the Twin Cast Double Blizzaga Plus Plus, which is the 4 AoE Brave HP attack, that's quite nice. And the fact that you get the rebreak off of it as well, like after you've maxed out the LD boards, it's decent. And like, increasing weakness damage is fine if you're using it with another character that can do weakness damage, or they're in a party with the likes of, say, Ignis, things like that. So Enchant Imperilers. You'll get a fairly nice, hefty damage boost from using this. It is nice. His regular call, meh. Like, it's an 8-hit Brave HP attack with splash damage, which is, sure, like, it's fine. Like, well, it's going to do 100% splash damage, but it's still just damage. That's all it is. And then in terms of his armor, and Edward's for that matter, he's got Attack Keystone, which is cute for people who want to use Palom. Like, if you're going to use Palom a lot, increasing his bravery and HP held damage will exponentially increase the amount of damage that he deals. And his high armor plus, I wouldn't personally pick it up because I have no interest in using Palom, but if you're going to use Palom a lot, it will help him. I just think that there's a lot better aspects, or a lot better uses of your high armor plus, considering what a commodity they are, than to give them to Palom. Like, he increases his Brave and his HP damage limits by 20%, so it's like an even split, which is unusual for a lot of characters up until this point. I can live without it, but I can live without Palom. Edward, like, again, the problem with Edward is himself, because all the stuff around him is actually quite good. His stats are just abysmal. But he has Encouragement Keystone, which is actually quite good now, if you know what to do with it. Like, it wasn't before, now it's actually a thing. And his HA Plus gives party Brave HP limits, but like the bravery increase is 10% and the the HP damage dealt is by 20%, which is it's good. Like by 15%, sorry. It's good. 5% to the party, 15% to HP. I still wouldn't pick it up though, because I don't plan on using Edward very often. Like there are just, if this could go on a better character, I would use it. But like Edward is there for his call ability. There are instances in which you might use Edward. He actually pairs up very well with Vincent. If people are still using Vincent and wanting a way to use him, then having those initial Brave drops from his other skills alongside Vincent, there are times where you can set up like 0 initial bravery cheeses. That's something I should mention as well. But by and large, people don't really like Vincent. So realistically, I wouldn't go pulling for Edward like to then like make Vincent slightly better, because it's just not worth the hassle. So now, of course, let's talk about the event that comes along with Edward and his Lost Chapter, particularly the Lufenia mission. Now, the Rock Raptors we've actually faced before, obviously with Edward's event, and the idea with them is that they put up various different auras, some of which allow them to take multiple turns in a row, which obviously coincides nicely with Edward, his ability to hide, and his ability to put the enemies to sleep and make it so that they can't do anything for that period of time. Now, this version of the Lufenia does much nastier things. This one's actually really difficult unless you undertake some sort of strategy to circumvent the entire fight. Because what they do is they put up a red aura after they hit under 80% and under 50% HP, at which point you have to take 20% damage off the enemies without them getting a turn. Now, there's obviously lots of ways of doing this, but if you don't do it, one of your characters is dead. Period. Now, if they get a white fog around them as well, what they're going to do at that point is they're going to instant kill your entire party. So basically, on top of the Lufenia orb, which asks for ice damage by way of Palom, obviously, you have multiple different facets that you have to cope with, otherwise you're just going to get killed. It's just the way the game works. And because of that, honestly, just undertake the most cheesy strategies you have. There's plenty of options for it. If you're wanting to take ice damage along, then there's plenty of options. Onion Knight is fantastic for this because not only does he give ice enchant to the party, and it's 8 turns of damage, like 8 turns against the Lufenia orb if you deal ice damage, so you don't even really need to do like ice enchant. However, if you're bringing somebody like Terra or Yang along, definitely helps. But Onion Knight is fantastic for this because not only does he do ice damage, but he also can like bring turns back. He has a burst. He can make it so that your party goes before they get a turn. So in an emergency or when you need to take that 20% off, Onion Knight's going to be able to help you pull that together. Sellers also very good. A lot of their attacks are actually magic based, so if you've got ways of getting around the mechanics of the fight, so taking that 20% off, making sure they can't do anything too nasty, Sellers will actually circumvent a lot of it, and because she has the ice enchant on top of it, then that's the orb dealt with as well. Or you can just go for no boss turns whatsoever by using something like Garland, Terra, Yang with Kater's call on him would actually work very nicely because Kater has an ice enchant on her regular call. Give that to Yang, take Garland and Terra, and off you pop. You know, that's one way of doing it. Or you could take along a launch team, Cloud, Dark Knight, Cecil, and Kais. Just boss them down and make sure they never get a turn in the first place because the orb actually disappears at 80% and reappears at 50%. So as long as you're able to get around that, you can just beat them down through Cloud Burst, Launch, Summon, Pandemonium, anything like that. That'll all work. Like any characters that stop your opponents from getting turns will be by far the easiest way you can get around this. So now we come to the big question, of course, should you be pulling for Edward or Palom? Now, personally, if you have neither LD, you could throw some tickets at it, maybe. I think that there are much greater priorities out there, so if you're still waiting to get Bartz's burst, like I am, then Tifa and Galoof are both really, really good. Like, really good. Will last for a significant portion of time, whereas Edward and Palom are good. They're just not game-breaking. There is a lot to be said for Edward's LD call ability, I will say that. And there's a lot of fun to be had. I've had this in the past with Edward as someone who already owns him, where I've experimented with the hide mechanic and using lock call abilities to make it so that enemies are locked onto Edward while he's hidden and they can't hit him. That's quite a fun thing to do. Also with the LD call ability and sleep in general, it's very useful. His Mystic Waltz debuff is actually very good. That comes from his EX as well. There's a lot of little bits and pieces that are really strong about Edward, and the new LD buff is actually really good. But his stats in general are very poor. Like, he's outside of synergy, and even within it, he's not going to be capping damage anytime soon unless you make massive concessions to make up for that. And for that reason, I think if you are pulling for Edward, you're going to be pulling for his LD call. Palom, I am not a fan of, personally. I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who are, because he is very damaging. My issue with him is that's all he is, and he doesn't have a burst, or he doesn't have anything that, like, Terra. Like, he gets 1 free turn off of break, she gets 4, and an extra LD used to him. Yeah, alright, he's got, like, Ice Enchant and Imperil, but only for himself. Like, he only enchants himself. I think that, unfortunately, Palom is... You compare him to other characters like him, and most of them tend to have bursts available, and therefore Palom is just not going to get used as frequently as a lot of those other characters. So therefore, if you have Edward already, I would personally miss this banner and save for others. There are other banners coming that have Palom on them, so if you really wanted to, you could use him. Like, this is what my plan was. If I were to get him in a free pull in a future ban or something, I'd probably use him, but I'm just not going to go out of my way for him, because I don't think that he is as worthy of my resources as the likes of, say, Tifa, Galoof, Bartz, and some of the characters that we've seen before. And then finally, of course, we come to Would You Pull, the section of the video where you, the viewer, get your chance to have your voice heard and let everyone know whether you would or wouldn't pull on any given banner and why. I don't think I've seen quite such a decisive banner since I started doing Would You Pull. Now, like I've said before, there are a lot of comments and a lot of people who vote and comment on these things. So one of the things that people tell me is that one of the reasons they like being on my Patreon is because they like seeing everyone else's comments, and obviously I can't feature them all. So thank you goes out to all of my patrons for posting all of their comments, etc. 30% of people said that we're going to use less than 100 tickets. Everyone else said no. So apparently I'm not the only person that's not too keen on this banner. Now, to go into some of these comments, Boopar Wiggum here says, already have Edward, and Palom doesn't do enough to negate the fact that every banner around this one is a must pull for me, so could do with some saving time. We'll hopefully grab Palom when he next pops up. Now, he pops up, like, way down in the line, and he actually comes up alongside Quistis, which is a banner that, in JP, everyone felt that they had to pull on. So, I don't feel that way about Quistis' event, because we have the foresight to be able to plan things in advance, whereas JP obviously didn't, so we can plan for it better than they were able to back then. But if we are pulling on that banner, it would be nice to have an extra thing that we don't have available to it if that comes about. So I'm of the opinion that I just don't think that Palom is worth pulling for at this time, even though he is actually quite good. So Alex says, I'm skipping this banner entirely. I got Edward LD when it first released, and while I know he's a good support, I don't think I've ever used him after his own event. I actually did use him a fair amount, but I do understand why other people didn't. Even this time, I plan on using him on the boss rush only because of the synergy boost, not on his Lost Chapter Lufenia. I'll gladly take his LD call with full gravity though and move on. As for Palom, while I tend to pull for everyone, and even if he is a decent magic DPS, I feel like he offers very little when you have units like Terra, Golbez, and then Strago and Cloud of Darkness coming up. I will pull for his banner baits Quistis and Saz, that's the other one I couldn't remember, in the future, so I'll probably get him then. Right now, he definitely doesn't bring enough to the table, and his kit is a bit too convoluted compared to units who will also deal a lot of magic damage while being more efficient and immediate to use. See, this is the thing. The reason people aren't so keen on Golbez is because magic damage, or damage in general, is all he really does, and he still has a gimmick in his burst, and the fact that he has one at all, that Palom just doesn't have. Terra has the crazy turn counts. Strago has rebreak on more of his stuff than Palom does. He just doesn't have the enchant in peril. And Cloud of Darkness, we'll get to her. Don't you worry, we'll get to her. So I just don't see it personally. Sir, if you have Edward, I would avoid this banner like the plague. Doma Dragoon says, this is just not a high value banner for me. I don't need ice damage because I have Onion Knight, Kurosame, and Celes. I did actually forget to mention Kurosame, and I'll get to him in a second. I don't need a heavy dedicated magic user because I have Terra. I don't need the secondary bonuses of the BT and Edward's kit because I already have them. To top it all off, Palom comes back on a banner I know I'm pulling on, Quistis, and a banner I probably will, Saz's. It's just the wrong twin and the wrong time. I mean, Porum is another one. It's like, we'll get to her. The other twin, we'll get to her. Kurosame is someone that is coming out relatively soon and is also ice damage based. Now, obviously, you know, Lost Chapters still have limited sort of missions, so they get the resources, things like that. But Kurosame, with his LD Call ability and the fact that he gains Party Enchant for ice and things like that, he's one you want to be looking out for. He has arguably the best single LD Call in the game because it applies Hyoro, which is a huge HP damage debuff. That is really nice to put on literally anybody. And we do have a lot of ice options already, like Celes, like Onion Knight. Like, you can take the slow approach with Celes. You can take the fast approach with Onion Knight. There's just no apparent need for Palom, which is unfortunate, because there are people that like him. I just happen to not be one of them. And then finally, Atoy Project says 100 tickets. Palom would be fun. I have an Ignis run going that would benefit from more elemental damage dealers and characters who can pick up the breaks he leaves for others. Palom does both, so it would be great to have him on the squad, but with Edward already acquired and gems looming for Tifa, tickets is all I will commit. I think everyone's just waiting on Tifa now. Like, we had the first punch of the 1-2 punch. For me, it's a three punch deal because I really want Galoof as well. And you guys saw my Bartz pulls. Hopefully it improves. So I'm definitely not spending anything here. But if you enjoy him, fair play to you. Like, he's not going to fail. But by and large, not many characters in this game actually do. Like, there are very few outright bad characters. There are just some that are made with more tools than others. And I think that Palom and Edward, to some extent, fall into the others category. Especially considering that it seems like most people picked him up the first time round. So that's going to be all for today's video. Stay tuned, as very soon I'll also be releasing a video on Galoof, who is somebody I'm far more excited about than I am for Edward and Palom. But then we've got plenty of other things coming up as well. Like I said, not just Galoof, but we've got Tifa as well. I'll be streaming Edward's Lost Chapter as well when it comes about over on Twitch, so definitely come and join in with me for that. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell for notifications of any other videos I might be making. And I hope to see you next time. And if you are pulling on Edward and Palom, then I wish you good luck. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Take care.